Hello guys, Assalamu alaikum. Guys, where we ended the our live stream, we will start from that place, like from where we ended the our live stream. Like we completed the video in the almost like 1 hour 3 minutes, and we will be continuing this video from that place. And after that, we are going to watch something else. Let's see, it will be more entertainment. Hoping it will be amazing. Or maybe we can talk like watch the Dr. Colston. Dr. Colston. Yeah. Because he's like
We would probably have to come through that port. Right now,
yeah. We can watch him. It's all about the information. We are watching Professor Jain because he predicted something crazy and it's happened. It's not like he's a predictor, like if he said and things will happen. No, it's not a like a it's not a like a how can I say it? Like it's not a convenient thing, it will happen. Like maybe it will happen. Okay, it did. On YouTube. Okay. Let's start the live stream. No, we haven't started the live stream. We just started the video and see how things will go. Hello. No. That's huge. This. Okay, guys, we are going to start the video. We will start the. Okay, let's watch a video. Let's see, but like this podcaster is weird, guys. It's weird. It's so weird. It's almost like most of the time this person is talking. I have no idea because like if someone is a podcaster, he need to be keep quiet and ask the question like who is this, who is like a I think let's say like if you invite someone means he is intelligent person and you have to ask him a question. Are you gonna also copy later? Yeah, but not right now. I have schedule it. You can get a notification about when I start the copy. Right now, I'm going to talk about the war, and okay, I'm not going to say anything more. Okay. Now we are going to learn about the situation of or the war. What is it happening in the war, and like after like 2 hours, yeah, after 2 hours, we will start the live stream of copy. And okay, this is my final. I am not going to say anything else. Okay, let's guys now start the video and let's see what they have. Let's see what kind of knowledge they have that we can collect it.
Donald Trump constrains Bibi Netanyahu, surely Kamala Harris would have pushed back on his actions much more than Trump if she were elected, and any Democrat would, and many other Republicans would. So
no, I don't think so. I don't think so. Because in USA, if it's a light, if it's a left side or if it's the right side, they both are at the same position. They always support. We know who they support, guys, and we saw it in the Joe Biden expedition. Not the when Joe Biden was the prime president. I don't live in that.
It's a sort of golden cage. It's been wonderful for quite some time. They benefited from it, but everything has to come to an end. So let's talk about the end of my country where I'm living right now.
Yeah.
Well, first off, so what was it like? So you moved to Canada, to Toronto when you were 6. You said
That's
so.
right.
You don't. I guess it would be hard to remember a whole lot about China before you immigrated. Maybe you have flashes, postcard
Right.
images of what China was like. What was it? What was it like to be a Chinese immigrant kid in Canada? Like, were you? Did you feel like you were in paradise, or did you?
In these important, yeah, it's very
Maybe feel like you're an outsider or,
Well,
sort of both.
my family was very poor.
Hmm.
And so we lived in poor neighborhoods where there was these mixing of the different ethnicities, but obviously these are not really educated people. They're not cosmopolitan, and so I suffered a lot of racial abuse when I was younger,
Hmm.
and that's what sort of compelled me to want to leave Canada and apply to the United States because I wanted to just get out of Canada. It's such a traumatic experience.
Mm.
Quite honestly, sometimes when I go back to Canada, I still find it traumatic because it will stir up these childhood memories of racial abuse
Wow.
and all that. But I mean, like at the same time, I'm very thankful um, for Canada because grow up in the 80s and 90s was really the best time to be alive. Nowadays, if you're a young person in Canada, it kind of sucks.
Hmm.
The country society has changed a lot, but in the 80s and the 90s when I grew up, you were allowed a lot of personal freedom. You could go out and explore the streets.
Hmm.
You could take risks. You could fail. It was not a big deal. It was all part of the process of growing up. I took my 2 kids, 2 boys back to Canada over the summer, and like, nowadays they expect you as a parent to have your child on a leash, like literally a leash, to like make sure the child is always within arm's reach.
Right.
And I was like, but if I did that, then how will my child ever learn resilience? How will my child ever learn empathy, independence,
Hmm.
uh, risk taking, creativity, imagination? And so I was very fortunate to have grown up in the 80s rather than today. So I'm thankful for what Canada provided. At the same time, I did suffer a lot of racial abuse while growing up in Canada.
I understand that completely. Growing up in the late 80s and early 90s, and I was born in Massachusetts, but I moved to Texas, and we
Okay,
would ride during the summer. We would ride our bikes from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. and
that's
maybe
exactly right.
stop go to mom for lunch and something like that. But yeah, we would, play a baseball game, play a football game, go on an adventure. Someone would get his knee skinned and hurt and so on. But to these things. But let's talk about America and the Civil War. So obviously, we've had one of these before in the 1860s, and it led to hundreds of thousands of deaths. Listening to your lecture on the coming Civil War, the 1860s is a precedent, but you seem to not think that something like that is going to happen. That was a regional conflict over slavery
Yep.
and secession. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a war of secession in many ways. I think the South did want
Yeah.
to break away. Uh, and the North wanted to maintain this empire. But what do you think the upcoming civil war is going to be like? Because the idea of a civil war is sort of in the air. Marjorie Taylor Greene has said we need a divorce, a national divorce, a kind of velvet divorce. We'll just agree to disagree. But how exactly that would shake out remains to be seen. Red state, blue state, they're fairly consistent, but there's a lot of, Illinois is a massive dot of blue, Chicago in a red state, for example.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
live in Montana now. I know exactly how Montanans would go. Very deep
Right.
red out here with the
Why, guys, he's always talking. He's talking. I have no idea. Why you call someone like he's a master, he's a professor. Okay, if you call the some kind of professor, you like I accept. Like if I'm the calling someone, I will like let him talk. I will ask a question and I will be shut up. In this whole video, this person is always is talking. I have no idea.
not a lot of blue anywhere.
Okay, Professor Jain said that in USA there is a possibility the civil war is going to happen. It's a big thing. It will happen because of this war. The chaos will grow in the USA and the civil war will happen. And he have to stop talking. Like, please. It's like
But
enough.
the president benefit act jeopardize the wouldn't let Montana go if it wanted to do so peacefully. You're in so anyway, and then B, what's really causing this. But first we'll stick with the pragmatic. How do you think this might shake out?
Okay. So I think it will not be a war. As you say, like in that there'll be two sides, you have two armies, and they fight each other because, I mean, like that's not what's going to happen. But what we will see is in the first, well, I think the Civil War might last 30 years. And I think what will emerge at the end of the Civil War.
What the 20, 30 years? This will be terrifying, guys. It's like if we stay like 35 years, it will be like in chaos.
It's a Christian theocracy
I'm hoping it will not
where the
happen.
United States embraces Christian nationalism as a defining ideology.
We just
And
need
that Christian
hope.
Zionism, Christian nationalism sort of like overrides the Constitution. Okay, that's what I think will be the most likely scenario in 20, 30 years time.
Wow.
And to get to that point, you have different stages. Okay, in the first stage, you'll see an acceleration of political violence. So public figures are targeted. You'll see massive public unrest. So going back to the LA riots, right? Against ICE raids, right? You will see an acceleration of the police state, the National Guard in different cities. Then the first stage, I think, ends when there's a defining political moment that radically transforms the political landscape of this country. And I think that will be Trump's third term. I think Trump intends to continue to be president. How he will do so, I don't know, right? I mean, it's possible he runs his son, Don Jr., and he's the vice president. Who knows, okay? But I think his intention is to have a third term. And I think that from all his actions, you can interpret it as he wants to stay in there for as long as he can, right? It's possible he dies out of office, but I think, if he stays healthy, then he's going to want that third term. If he does that and he succeeds, and I think he will likely succeed because he'll cheat in 2028, you will have massive revolt in the country. You have cities like New York, Boston, who are open defiance. Some states like California, they might even choose to secede from the union. And now you're going to have a massive conflict throughout the nation. Most of the country will actually not be affected. If you're just living in a suburb in Connecticut, this may not even affect you. But if you're living in a city of New York City or Boston, you're gonna have these massive sieges, okay? Then as in the third stage, then I think you'll have like just a breakdown of the United States, and different states will fight against each other. Different cities will fight against each other. But eventually, I think the red states, like Texas, maybe, they will become dominant, and they will eventually reform the United States of America.
Hmm.
And honestly, this is no different from what happened during Roman times, during the Roman Empire. I mean, you had a constant process of civil war, and a great leader emerges, and then you have imperial consolidation, and then like maybe 20 years, 30 years later, civil war again. So it's a constant cycle. And I quite honestly, I think that's what's gonna happen in the United States. At the same time, and this is what's really interesting is even as this civil war gets worse and worse, America will continue to expand in the Americas. America's going to claim territory in Canada, in
Hmm.
Mexico, in South America. So I think that is what I imagine to happen over the next 20, 30 years to America. And again, this fits into the eschatology because America needs to be isolated from the rest of the world because the rest of the world needs to achieve the second coming. And so the Civil War, this imperial expansion throughout the Americas, it will distract America long enough for the events to unfold in the Middle East in the way that they should.
Wow.
So yeah.
And so
And
you
and
think
and
it's
I,
a,
I
oh, go ahead, finish your thought.
yeah, and also I think like one of the hidden hands in all the Civil War will be the Catholic Church. I think the Catholic Church is a much more dominant player
Hmm.
underlying American politics than people imagine it to play. I mean, like look, I mean, JD Vance, I mean, like he will be, regardless of what happens, I mean, he will be a very dominant political player in the next few decades, and he's a very young person, right?
Hmm.
The new pope of the Catholic Church is American. So I would not be surprised if there are certain institutional elements within the Catholic Church, maybe Opus Dei, the Jesuits, who
Hmm.
see the Civil War as opportunity to gain power in America. Because remember, before the Anglo-American Empire, it was a Catholic empire. And so how do you reconstitute the millennium? How do we reconstitute the Catholic Empire? Well, you either bring America into the fold, you co-op America, or you cause America to disintegrate, right? So
Yeah.
so so I think the Catholic Church will also play a very important role in the coming decades.
And so you see the Civil War as left versus right, in effect. I mean, the first Civil War was regional. You couldn't, well, there was a little bit of slavery in Massachusetts, but you couldn't have a massive Gone with the Wind style plantation in Connecticut or something like that. There was regional differences of geography that created different economies that were interconnected, of course, but were different. And this led to a regional conflict, but it wasn't left versus right. Exactly. You had different types of people on both sides. But you think that the red state, blue state divide, left versus right, or right versus left, in this case, that is going to be it. And we're a hyper polarized society. This is how.
Left and right are like a creation of making people controlled by friends. Like in America, everybody is thinking about left and right. They never think like who is controlling them both sides. I think the both sides are controlled by same people, but they don't see it because they are like, oh, I have to go this way, I have to go this way. Then they are fighting each other. They are not thinking about what the heck is happening. Why always they do same thing when when they have a power. Like as an outsider, I'm seeing the same thing. Okay, they both are doing same thing. How? Like if someone's mentality is like different, they will do different things, but they don't never do different things. They do same things always. They just like show Americans like, oh, we are doing a different thing. We are different. We are left. Right will say, I'm right. I'm different. No. If you like, if you like, think about them. They are same. They are same thing. They never think about the America. I don't think so because people are dying in America. They don't have a thing to live, and still they are like searching for country. Oh, like that. Like this. Oh, which country we need to attack? Oh, this one. Let's go. We got a petrol. Let's go. What the heck? They never see. Oh, what the heck is happening in my country? There is no one can like.
We think now everything's coded as Republican and Democrat. If we're going to break down, those are going to be the fault lines.
I think on the surface that's a fault line, but I don't think that's what happened. I think the larger conflict is between establishment interests versus emerging elite interests, right? So the example is Donald Trump, right? So in 2020, the establishment elite coalesced together to get rid of Donald Trump,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like $6 billion was spent on an election. The entire elite apparatus, the media, the financial sector, the deep state, CIA, they all banded together to get rid of Donald Trump. And back to the Peter Thiel. Remember, what was interesting is 2016, 2024, Peter Thiel was a vocal supporter of Donald Trump. But in 2020, he withdrew his support for Donald Trump. So it seemed like at that time the entire establishment got together and decided we need to get rid of this guy because he's a liability to imperial interests. And then Joe Biden came in and they recognized that Joe Biden's actually even worse for imperial interests, and that's why they let Donald Trump to come back in. But obviously, if you're Donald Trump, you're kind of pissed off about what happened in 2020.
Sure.
I mean, so I think Project 2025, the underlying hidden agenda of Project 2025 is to start attacking the basic infrastructure of the establishment. And I think that is what's really driving the Civil War. These elites come, Peter Turchin, the historian, has a term for this: elite overproduction. You have limited positions of power and status. You have too many elites. They all want these positions of power, so they're going to have to fight it amongst themselves. So I think left-right is what we see, but behind it are these deep institutional elements.
Yeah, I'm talking about same thing. Like in front, you can see like left and right, but they are behind. They are controlling both of them. You're not seeing that.
These interests that are in conflict with each other, and left, right are basically puppets or tools. I mean, you can make the argument Antifa. I mean, it's not an organic organization. I mean, like it's almost like a FBI undercover organization. And then on the right, you have Patriot Front or whatever they call it. But it's so blatant. I mean, what they're doing now. Now, why would you do that? Why would you incubate these organizations? Well, I mean, you would incubate these organizations if you want to activate them for civil unrest. So I think in the first stage it'll be establishment versus these Trump-aligned conservative factions that are trying to overthrow the establishment, including Chris Zionists, including the Mormons, including the Catholics. Okay, but eventually you reach a point where the establishment is overthrown, and now these factions fight amongst themselves. So. But I think what's really important for us to understand is the left is not a factor in the Civil War. The left is extremely disorganized. I mean, these past few decades, the left has done a tremendous job in consuming itself, in destroying itself through woke ideology, through its alignment with the establishment, through its through COVID lockdowns. I mean, like the left has just absolutely no credibility in America nowadays. It just doesn't. I mean, and quite honestly, the left, they're not going to die for what they believe because they don't believe in anything. You look at people like Obama, AOC, right? Do they stand for anything? I don't think they stand for anything. All they stand for really is like playing the game, moving up. But Obama's not going to die for what he believes in. Whereas people on the right will die for what they believe in. So I don't think the left is a factor in the Civil War.
Yeah. Well, there's also something that I've noticed is that the first 9 months or so of the Trump second term, it's been this attack on the establishment but
Yep.
without replacing it with anything. Elon Musk came out with a chainsaw and said, we're destroying bureaucracy. Now, I don't think he really destroyed all that much, but it was an attack on USAID. It was attack on long-term bureaucrats, etc. Even something as trivial as getting Jimmy Kimmel fired. I don't know if you heard this. He's this very
Yeah,
boring
yeah,
and
I
stupid
have. Yeah,
a late night
yeah.
talk show. Well, previously in American history, late night was actually a very unifying thing. Johnny Carson spoke to all Americans, middle class, the wealthy elite, even working class people. They all liked Johnny Carson, and they thought the celebrities he talked to were their friends. And Bob Euchre would come on and talk about baseball. It was very unifying and homey. And Jimmy Kimmel is nothing like that. He's polarized himself and he's boring. But even here, you have an attack on the institution. This thing is falling. Let's just push it over the edge. But at least from my standpoint, there's no institution that's replacing it. There's not a Trump USAID, or there's not like a new vision of government that's replacing what they're tearing down. There's not a Trump late night host who brings everyone together. They're in the stage of liquidating all of these institutions that are actually 20th century institutions. They're quite old, but they've all been coded liberal. Attack the universities. Let's bring Harvard is going to be neutered. They're going to pay us money. We might even take them down. They're getting rid of these things, but they're not presenting hegemonic institutions in their place. At least that's my perception. So, I guess what you're saying is that at the end of it, it's going to be Christian nationalism. It's going to be just full on. It's in the Bible. 10 Commandments, baby, bake me the cake, convert the gays. I mean, I guess it makes sense in the sense that I don't think Trumpism has any core belief other than Trump himself. And he is going to die at some point, maybe soon.
Yes.
And something has to fill that void. There's no other personality that can fill it. Maybe some sort of hardcore thing, but something that resonates with American history. And to be frank, Puritanism, biblical fundamentalism, that resonates with American history from my
Exactly.
perspective, unfortunately. But you have to find something to fill that void.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I will say is that if you're a Christian Zionist, you believe like the media, the judiciary, and the universities are fundamentally liberal institutions. And therefore, you have to burn down these institutions if you are to spread your Christian nationalist ideology. Once you have the ideology in place, and these institutions will come about that support the ideology. So I don't think the intention is to replace the universities. I think the intention is just to burn them down, because like why do you need universities? They're just propaganda machines for the liberal elite. I mean,
Yeah. At this
why do you need
point,
Harvard?
sadly, yes.
Yeah, like why? Just burn them down. Like who needs them, right?
Mm. That's why I'm just speaking for myself. I am ambivalent about a lot of this because I don't like the destructiveness, and I feel like so much of the destructiveness is very stupid. It's people who resent the idea of Harvard. I think that the idea of 20 people gathering at a table and discussing Milton is a great thing and a necessary thing for building the elite. And I feel like there is a sort of stupid resentment against the idea of education itself. That being said, it's very hard for me to defend Jimmy Kimmel or defend Harvard as it is at this moment.
It does not matter right now because the Christian Zionists have more power, and with the Jew Zionists, they are like controlling everything. They think they are doing a Jesus work. You have to like understand. You, bro, you have nothing. You are just saying these people are stupid. I think you are stupid right now. You are like just saying it, he's stupid. It's like believing that I am stupid because I'm not understanding them.
Reluctantly agree with
Like I'm talking about you. Like you are saying they are stupid, and it's like it's backfiring for you.
the Trump movement that these institutions have gone haywire. So,
Look,
yeah.
I mean, look, it's these liberal institutions that created Trump. Okay. I mean, like, it's very important we understand this. Trump is not a self-creation. He's a creation of the liberal institutions that
Mhm.
hate him. Okay. So in 2016, Trump became popular because he was being anti-Obama. I mean,
Mhm.
he was this populist hero, right? Why? Because the Obama
Because the Trump was got a power because of he want to make America great again. No, he now he's not making America great. He's like he's destroying it. Not talking about you, but the question that is bad. Yeah, I know. I'm not saying that you are saying I'm stupid. You are saying these are stupid because they are saying that college and universities are useless thing. I think university and college are to control people, like make them slave, the perfect slave. They never think like they are slave. Because if you talk with someone who have studied in the university, they will think we are doing something great. But no, they are slave. Just they have no idea they are slave.
years create this tremendous inequality between the haves and the have-nots. And
Like if you need a perfect slave, like send them university and these institutes. Yeah, yeah, they will. You will get a perfect slave. They will have no idea they are slave. How many? First of all, why do we need a lawyers? Yeah, I can say doctors and engineers. We can make it something. We do something else. There will be no university, but still there will be doctors. In the history, they were. Without the university, they were.
I mean, people were just sick of this. Remember, in 2008, Obama came in promising that he would clean up Wall Street. And all he did was bail out Wall Street and punish
In this
these
time
millions
period,
of homeowners who lost
getting
their
a
homes
degree
because
is a
of Wall
useless thing.
Street shenanigans, because of Wall Street corruption.
Right now, I'm seeing some people, they have a degree, they are useless. And maybe like you, maybe you have a degree. That's why you are talking about degree is a perfect thing.
And Trump promised that I will fix this. Okay. When he came into office, he was sabotaged from day one by the liberal elite, right? The media was spreading this Russian hoax that that Trump was a Putin spy, and you had you had certain individuals in Trump's cabinet that were in open rebellion
Yeah,
against
this
Trump,
one, call
who
it the
refused to
scam.
take Trump's orders. In fact, you had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, say very proudly, I called the Chinese and said, "Don't worry about this guy. We're not taking orders from this guy. He's a loose cannon. Don't worry about it."
Mhm.
Okay, that's treason. You don't do that. Okay, that's basically treason. But he said it with relish. Okay, the
Mhm.
entire media is
It's all about the boomers. Boomer says like the college is a perfect thing to go. But the young population know it. These are right now, these are useless. It's like making a slave, like creating a slave for for elite.
establishment went against Trump. And then in 2020, as I mentioned, the entire establishment spent $6 billion to get rid of this guy. All right. And that should have been it. But then you had January 6th, which was, I mean, arguably a federal operation. But then after that, you had the liberals try to bankrupt Trump. I mean, there were six civil suits against Trump. They were trying to throw him in prison. You had these judges in Colorado who are trying to take him out like out of the ballot. You have this raid on Mar-a-Lago for who knows why, but the FBI raided him. So I mean, the media, the liberals were obsessed with this guy, and because Trump was being persecuted by the liberal elite, the institutional elite, it made him a folk hero in
Yeah.
America. Americans don't like that when the government bullies someone. It goes against the very soul of America to be bullied by the government like that. When Trump was being bullied throughout all this time, and so you have this former president who is a billionaire, and now he's like a folk hero. He's the underdog, and now that he's swept back into office, he has a popular mandate to bulldoze like all these institutions that bullied him
Hmm.
past 8 years. So I'm sorry to say this, but these liberal institutions did this to themselves. At
Mm.
no point was there any self-reflection. At no point did anyone say, you know what, we're going too far. We're calling him Hitler, but are we creating Hitler?
Yeah.
Like remember, because Hitler would not have been Hitler without the popular mandate that he had, because of these like decades of frustration among the German people.
Yes, I agree with so much of what you've said. But he's like a wrecking ball. I mean, it's
That's the intention.
fascinating. That's the intention. So it's a force higher than these liberal institutions. It's not like the dean of a Harvard college is truly like the elite in the sense of
Yeah, that's right.
the man, calling the shots. And so I think there were so many things with Trump, as you said, when it was perceived that he was being persecuted by Jack Smith. That's
When did he say Trump is a Hitler? Only person. When did he say? Like he was saying that how Hitler was created, like everything was happening with the Trump. Like there was a chance Trump can be a Hitler.
when he became popular again and they threw Ron DeSantis out the window. Also, January 6th, you saw all of these billionaires, maybe they're sort of former liberal billionaires, counter billionaires, you could say, who came on side because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, even if they ultimately support Israel, they are more likely to.
In Germany, when Hitler was there, the population of Germany, like they went toward the Hitler, like they supported Hitler. It was same as the Trump. The majority of USA they supported Trump. I was seeing it at that time. Saw the election.
Push back. And I do think that there was a certain elite that wanted Trump. Despite all of it, they thought that he was going to be the one that would allow Israel to pursue its dreams in the most expansive way possible, excuse me. And thus Trump isn't this counter elite. He isn't the anti-war president.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
actually brought in by certain elites that
Yeah.
want this. And yeah, in terms of what he creates, it's not even necessarily his fault, just to be fair. But in terms of what he creates, the vibe that he brings to the country, there's no doubt the Charlie Kirk assassination as an example, we do seem to be getting closer to street level kinetic violence day by day. I don't think you think this. I don't think any reasonable person thinks that we're not going to see another one of these things like Charlie Kirk, someone who is deeply politically coded and symbolic.
No, guys, I want to tell you in this time there's no about the oil. It's a religious war. You have to like be on the same page, guys. But stop watching these news platforms. Stop watching news platforms. Come on.
Yeah.
Getting killed, getting roughed up at the very least, being violently attacked in broad daylight. for the simple reason of sending a message. And the message, the violence there becoming so much more expansive on social media. Millions of people are seeing it and feeling it right then and there. And thus, Trump sort of brings in the civil war. Maybe to be overly fair here, maybe not, well, I think he did urge people to do J6 and whatever, but to be fair, overly fair, not really to the fault of his own, but just the sort of energy that he brings to the table. He brings an energy of violence. I think a lot of liberals have gotten in trouble for saying this, but I think they're actually right about that. And we're not going to cool things down. We're not going to go back to normal. We're not going to elect Mitt Romney or something like that, where we can just sort of tune out of politics, maybe make fun of the president here and there. With Trump, the general social mood of the country is more existential.
I think with this Charlie Kirk shooting, America has another 9/11 moment. I think it's a watershed moment, and I think you're absolutely right in that there's no going back after this. It's opened a Pandora's box. And remember, after 9/11, two major things that happened were the Patriot Act, the beginning of the surveillance state, and then these wars in the Middle East. And I think that with this Charlie Cook shooting, you'll have both. Yeah. You have both. I mean,
Charlie Cook. It's like I'm saying it some words.
you're gonna have Palantir become dominant. I mean, they've been planning this for like a long time, right? And that the infrastructure for all this, and I'm sure there are lots of legislation already, written that they're going to put the ram through over the next few months in memory of Charlie Kirk, okay, to celebrate his memory, right? They'll probably call it the Charlie Kirk Act or whatever, the Patriot Act 2 or something. And I also think this will be the impetus for America's invasion of Iran. Somehow they're going to connect it to, and because like after 9/11 they invaded Iraq, and like there was absolutely no connection between 9/11 and Iraq.
Guys, you have to understand right now the USA isn't attacking. It's someone else, like Israel, because they are controlling Donald Trump. The STM files, why they are releasing like slowly, because they have to control the Donald Trump, because the action they want to Trump need to make it, they are controlling from the STM file. I think there are more STM files for the Donald Trump. I think there are more crazy files. If we saw it, like everyone will wake up. They don't need to wake up people. They just like Donald Trump will be like, oh, don't send it. Don't send it. No. It's enough. I don't want to see more. It's like that. Like if you see more, I think it will be wild. All Americans will start fighting against Donald Trump. They will never support him.
In fact, right. Iraq was a enemy of Al Qaeda, but they invaded Iraq anyway. So I think this is a watershed moment, and I don't think you can overestimate the impact on the American psyche of what happened.
They're already doing military recruitment on Charlie Kirk's behalf. Yeah, Charlie Kirk never served in the military. I mean, for what it's worth.
Right. And Charlie Kirk, by the way, was the one who vocally told Trump not to bomb Iran. He told Trump, we have actually no business bombing Iran. The American people don't want a war in the Middle East. I mean, Charlie Kirk was one of the good guys in Trump's orbit. I mean, he was one of the restraining forces, right?
Sure, I'll grant you that, but I do agree that he no doubt went and told Donald Trump that because he was getting pressure from his sort of anti-war base. And the amazing thing, but maybe even predictive thing, is that they're going to use him to inspire a war. One thing that I've also noticed here is that I think so many liberals want the establishment to push back. The media does push back to some degree, to the degree they can, but they almost want, these governors to stand up to Trump, and they have to some,
Yeah.
Pritzker and Newsom to some degree, but they're almost waiting for some establishmentarian wasp in a tweed coat to just come out of the woodwork and say, no, we don't do that here. And I think what I've seen in Donald Trump's second term is that doesn't actually exist.
Yep.
They are going to send the National Guard into California.
Yep.
Tim Cook, Mr. Liberal Apple, left-coded company. What are they going to do? They're going to come to the White House and kiss Trump's ass.
Yep.
The mainstream media, are they going to push back on behalf of free speech and democracy? No, they're actually going to fire the people whom Trump hates. There's nothing
Yep.
coming from the so-called establishment, because that's not really the establishment. These institutions, long-standing institutions, the New York Times, ABC, Harvard University, all these are 20th century institutions that have now been coded as liberal, and people want them to push back, but they just won't, and they can't, because they're not an actual elite. They're a sort of like sub-elite of something else
Yeah.
that might actually like what Donald Trump is doing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, the liberal elite is the professional managerial class, right? They're not the
Right.
owners. They're not
Right.
the bosses. It's the deep state, that are the bosses, and we'll never know who they are. One thing I will say is, remember during the Trump first term, the liberal elite basically sold their soul to the deep state, right?
Hmm.
Because rather than reflect on what they did wrong, that would allow for the election of Donald Trump, rather than recognize their own limitations and commit to certain changes in their behavior, they decided that, you know what, we'll get the deep state to go after Trump and create a soft coup, right? Robert Mueller in his report will definitely indict Trump, right? The
Hmm.
Joint Chiefs of Staff will overthrow Trump or whatever, okay? But basically the liberal elite sold their soul to the deep state. And then after the deep state realized, we're better off with Donald Trump because we need to create wars in the Middle East in order to expand the military industrial complex. Now the liberal elite's kind of stuck because, as you say, they don't have any real power, and
Hmm.
they've sold their soul to the deep state a long time ago.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Well, let's do this. We have about 20 more minutes to go or so, and you've been very generous with your time, and I've
Right.
really been invigorated by this discussion. But let me open it up to some questions, which you could entertain if you're willing.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, Ateas, you're up there first. Go for it.
Yeah. I had a question about it was briefly talked about, which is the idea that, Johnny Carson being, a very unifying figure,
Hmm.
and how everything is kind of self-curated. So, like, if you want news, you go on the internet and you get news for yourself. Um, I guess my question would be, like, how much of it do you attribute to this kind of theory of a civil war, of this idea that nothing is unifying anymore? I think the only last thing that's unifying really is probably sports, but I don't really think that's kind of powerful.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. You have a breakdown over the past 20 years of three things that were unifying: ideology, narrative stories, and institutions, right? So Johnny Carson was an institution in America. Television was an institution in America because everyone just sat down as a family and watched TV together. That's what you did in the 60s and 50s and 70s. So all these unifying forces, especially ideology, like what's America stand for? What is America about? Like what is the American dream? I mean, it's died out. I mean, it's been ruptured, and again, there's really no going back to it. The only unifying ideology on the horizon that I see is Christian nationalism, to return to America's roots as the New Jerusalem, as a city on the hill, That's about it. And I think that's why you're seeing what you're seeing. I mean, the fact that after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, you had a lot of people celebrate his death is a really bad omen for America. It just tells us that there's no shame, there's no guilt, there's no sense of civility in America anymore. I mean, like we've all been primed by social media to behave with outrage, to behave with extreme emotion. And there's really no space for self-reflection, for restraint, for civility anymore in America.
Yes.
I think
Oh,
oh,
go ahead.
sorry.
Yeah, sure. You can
I
follow
was
up.
just going to add one more thing. It does seem like, whoever has the strongest channel of information, which would be like the theocracy of the Catholic Church or
Yeah.
something, you know, if you have like the most unifying channel for a message, you would then become the establishment of messaging people. So, I guess I'm just reinforcing and agreeing with what you're saying.
Yeah, again, I would not underestimate the power and the reach of the Catholic Church. I mean, they have a hierarchy. They're extremely well organized, and they've been lying in wait for hundreds of years, right? I mean, like there's just for hundreds of years, there's been this secret war between the Jesuits and the Freemasons. And this war has spilled over to America, and this war has never gone away. So yeah, I mean, like, watch out for the Catholic Church. In fact, I mean, like, look at Candace Owens, and just look at what she says, what she does. I think a lot of her agenda aligns with that of the Catholic Church.
Do you think Christian nationalism will be inflected by Catholicism? When I am, yeah, North America might have been Catholic at the beginning, at the beginning of the conquest. That's for sure. But this is a Protestant country, but maybe that was the 20th century Christianity, which was that everyone was Protestant, including the Catholics and the Jews. They were just another version of Protestantism, and that's something that's older, in fact. And do you think Catholicism will be the driving force of Christian nationalism, or will it go more to a Protestant fundamentalism?
Um, I mean, if you look at the situation right now, certainly the Catholic Church and the Mormons have huge advantages. But as you say, what matters is the soul of this country. What
Hmm.
matters is what Americans fundamentally believe. And I think that Americans are fundamentally anti-Catholic Church. They don't like hierarchy. They don't like the idea of a pope. I mean, Americans fundamentally believe in individualism and in
Hmm.
liberty, and direct access to God. So, yeah, I think the Catholic Church and the Mormons have a huge advantage. But as you say, what will actually happen, we don't know. Also, we have to remember that this is a dynamic, like the situation is very dynamic, and so we're discounting geophysical events, like real geophysical events that could happen to America over the next 20 years. I know people argue about climate change, but what we can't argue is that the Earth undergoes extreme weather now and then. Right? We
Hmm.
could be facing a mini ice age in next 20 years, and if you have a mini ice age, all bets are off the table, right?
Hmm.
Because like you have a major depopulation event. So it's a very dynamic situation. I'm not going to say the Catholic Church will end up as the winners. I'm not going to say the Protestants are end up as the winners. I think Christian theocracy is the end result, but which faction determines this Christian theocracy, I can't really say at this point.
Interesting. Henry, you're next.
Yeah, a lot of the discussion lately has been about the three Abrahamic religions, and for obvious reasons, and potential manifestation of their eschatology. But I'm curious, how do you see the other world religions playing into this event? The Buddhists perhaps have less political influence, but the Hindus, and most interestingly, the atheist Chinese. Like, one big mystery for me is what the relationship is between China and Israel. So I'm just curious how you see that playing
Hmm.
out.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't really know much about Hinduism. I don't think it's eschatological, right? I mean, like it's like Buddhism. It's not eschatological in the way that the Abrahamic religions are eschatological, and that's important because it's eschatology that drives geopolitics. It's eschatology that
Mm.
wants you to go and like do something in Jerusalem. So I do know a lot about China because I obviously live in China and I'm Chinese. China's not interested in geopolitics. China's not interested in what's happening in the Middle East. It's interested in trade. It's interested in exporting its cheap labor overseas. But China's not going to militarily intervene on anyone's behalf outside Chinese borders. It doesn't do that. It's not going to invade Taiwan. I know there's a lot of discussion that China might use all this upheaval around the world to reclaim Taiwan. China's not going to do that. It doesn't have to do that.
Hmm.
China is big enough as it is. It's called the Middle Kingdom because it sees itself as a universe unto itself. It wants to be left alone, basically. And that's the worldview of China. We're the Middle Kingdom. Everyone else is barbaric. They slaughter themselves in the Middle East. That's because what they do. That's
Hmm.
what they do. They just slaughter themselves like over there. Let's ignore it. I live in China and I check the news every day, and the Chinese are not reporting what's happening around the world. China's just
Hmm.
not interested in what's happening in the world. The other thing is that if you just look at the economic situation in China right now, it's very, very unstable. And there's a real fear that the economy will get worse and worse. And I think the Communist Party is more concerned about domestic unrest than it is about, overseas wars.
So it's interesting because you learned English in Canada from the time you were 6. Do you think that your worldview is obviously inflected by your education and experience, but I think my impression is also that you're really tapped into social media and thinking in the West and in America. Like
Yeah,
I presume you're following Twitter in a way that you're
yeah,
not looking at a Chinese newspaper, which might be operating in a different realm, as you say.
yeah. So the messaging is more controlled in China. So if you want to know the official line, then you read the Chinese newspaper, which will not take very long. But if you really want to understand the Geist in China, if you really want to understand how people are thinking, you need to walk.
China has to support, guys, Iran. Like the petrol, like you get oil from the Iran. I think it's too much. Like you need to support the Iran because Iran survives, the energy survive China. Like I don't think China is not seeing it. Like they are not seeing a Jerusalem, but they are seeing it's their neighbors. Still, they have like eyes on the neighbors. What is happening with their neighbors?
Streets. You need to see them in restaurants. You need to analyze their faces. This is different in the West because social media, I mean, it's really like the id of America, right? I mean, like just by analyzing social media, you get a deep sense of the fundamental feelings that are underpinning American society right now. And so I see a lot of hatred, I see a lot of anger, I see a lot of confusion, I see a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, definitely. Andrew J.
Hey, what's going on? I'm just curious. As far as like a next 9/11 moment, excuse me, do you guys think like a cybersecurity event, like a global or national or regional kind of hacking event from another state like Russia or even like a corporation could kind of occur? I could see something like that happening in the next 10 to so years just because we're so on our phones at this point. It seems to me like fertile ground for some sort of like terrorist attack. And then you have the misinformation of, oh, that's a false flag. It was really Israel who did it, or I could see something like that happen. Just want to get your guys' take on that.
That's a fantastic question. So I say that 9/10 was like 9/11, and not in that like Charlie Kirk was assassinated. What mattered was a spectacle,
Hmm.
right? So after 9/11, what you saw on TV all the time, on constant, replay, was the planes hitting the Twin Towers and the Twin Towers coming down. It was to induce trauma.
It was so weird how the like plane hit the tower and tower went down. That's so weird. Tower need to go like this way or maybe this way. How they even went down? Like how did they make people fool? I think they made everyone.
You do that through spectacle, through
Mhm.
real life spectacle, right? And so remember, like after the shooting, that graphic video was unleashed on the internet. Everyone saw it. You didn't want to see it. You just saw it by accident. And guess what?
Mhm.
It's stuck in your mind. And that's going to have long-term psychological consequences. It's going to change the psyche. It's going to change the worldview. So that's what you want to create. You want to create a violent spectacle that traumatizes the population, it hypnotizes in a way that allows you to program the population in a way that you want. Remember, after 9/11, the Patriot Act was rammed through Congress, and then George Bush said, we're going to invade Iraq. And people were never like, why are we doing this? Because people were so shocked by the event that they just sort of passively accepted it. And that's what trauma victims do. Like they just accept the world around them because they've disassociated from the world around them, right? So the idea is to create the spectacle. So that's why hacking doesn't really do anything. How are you traumatized if your computer goes off for a week? Like who cares, right? The point is to create a spectacle. The other thing that's really important is that if you look at all the
Your link is no, bro. You can join my like if you go in my channel, go toward the about, and there you can get a link. It's not expired. You can go there. Sometimes it says it's expired, but it's not expired.
major spectacles of the past 20th century, including the killing of
Go
JFK, 9/11,
in my
and
home, and you can get
Charlie
a there
Kirk,
link.
you will see massive occult symbolism around the event, right?
Mm.
So, Charlie Kirk was killed 33 weeks after the inauguration of Donald Trump. He was killed 34 days before his 32nd birthday. It
Mm.
took 33 hours for the FBI to capture the culprit. The press conference lasted.
And some Israelis were dancing at that time, like Mossad were dancing. They captured some people, they were dancing when the Twins Tower went down. It's wild. It's wild.
33 minutes. The shooter was 22 years old. I could go on and on, but it's all programmed into the event to create a subconscious fear and trauma. It's all really well orchestrated. I mean, this event must have been like years in the making. Maybe they didn't know it would be. Maybe they didn't pick the victim yet, but they
Okay,
wanted
guess
to create
what?
a
Let's
9/11
get it.
spectacle in order to traumatize the masses, in order to push their agenda further.
Fascinating.
Do you think COVID was a kind of, it wasn't a spectacle, but I'm seeing in this hypothetical cybersecurity event that I'm talking about, like a mass hacking or something like that, I was kind of thinking of something like COVID, where it was shocking, but it was also, debilitating from your normal way of life. That's, I guess, more so than a 9/11 kind of spectacle event, like you're saying.
Um, yeah, I think COVID was an experiment. I think like the situation got out of control, and they responded, and like in their response, they recognized, oh my God, the masses are just sheep. They'll just do whatever we tell them to do, um, and they got away with it. And so I think the next thing will be the actual event, which is maybe the implanting microchips into your bodies. That I think is the real intention. I think COVID might have been an experiment.
Mm. Regular guy?
So you talk about this Christian theocracy and the alternatives that it could be. You said it could be Catholic, it could be Protestant. You mentioned the Mormons, which that's kind of a far cry to what the typical American is used to in terms of theology. But who do you think is when? And you say that's going to wrap up the conflict in the U.S. That we're going to see. Who is ultimately going to be the real loser of this Christian theocracy, and who's going to be the winners? Like, is it going to be the common man because they're going to be issued a wife, or is it going to be, and are the losers going to be non-heteronormative people, or is it going to be women,
Liberals, yeah.
or just atheists, even if they're white and
I think literally this man love to talk. Like most of the in this video, he is talking.
male?
I'm so confused.
Yeah. So I don't see history as a conflict between individuals and between peoples. I see history as fundamentally a conflict over ideas and narratives and ideology, right? So at the founding of America, there was this major conflict between the Enlightenment ideal and the Christian utopia ideal, right? I mean, remember, like the Pilgrims came to America to create a Christian utopia, the New Jerusalem, and that sort of got sidelined because of these Enlightenment ideals that have now manifested themselves into a multicultural, liberal, secular society. And that I think will be the real loser. Like, goodbye multiculturalism. We don't want that. We want everyone to be Christian. Goodbye secularism. Goodbye liberalism. So I mean, the very idea of liberalism will die in this process. I mean, like that's what I think is going to happen.
Well,
I think yeah, go on, regular.
I asked that because of well, in addition to the Enlightenment versus Christian theology in the U.S., there was the slaver culture, which we saw emerge in the 19th century, and the infamous Mudstill speech, which says that, society is hierarchical and some people need to have tragic lots where they need to be manual laborers, and if we're not on top, we might be at the bottom of the mud still. And I'm wondering who would be at the bottom of the mud still in terms of groups in this Christian theocracy you see emerging.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't really see the sort of the economic hierarchy changing that much. I mean, like, it's very easy for these liberal elites to don on new clothes, right? Like before they were liberals and now they're just priests. Like, what's the difference, really? What they do behind closed doors is their own business, right? But what they do in public, I mean, they will pay adherence to the theocracy, but behind closed doors, they'll still operate their secret societies, which will be liberal in nature. So I don't really see the economic hierarchy changing that much. Hey, Richard, I apologize, but I need to go because I have another call at 11 o'clock. So,
no problem.
It's been great.
Yeah, we have really benefited from your being.
Yeah, if you shut up. I think this podcast, what I say, how Sinigo interview him, it was good. I love it. Like how he interview him, it is good, guys. You can see it. Like he will be less talking and he will like let the professor talk and he will be talking. I don't like the other person.
That Israel wants America to lose this war so that they have dominant control.
More support, please. The Iranian, the Middle East does them no good. What they want to do is states of Iran, and that will enable Iran to not only rebuild their economy and rebuild their society, but then to project power throughout the Muslim world. Maintain puncture, I don't see.
Trying to copy your list. He comes to America, you didn't see. But this is a good example of a Western Iranian who is not going to enlist. There might be a draft of Mossad paid influencers.
Show. And what happened was, that was the same day that there was a concerted online campaign against me. And that I went on Twitter and everyone was attacking me. And it was the same talking points. Who are these people and why is this happening all at the same time? So that interview request from Patrick Bet-David, it's sort of like, I'm like, this must be a setup.
What are your immediate predictions with this war?
The amount of insanity that's going to happen in this war is going to be beyond our imagination, okay? I think at some point Trump will introduce a draft.
Because the Sinigo is going to ask about like this war. He will not keep talking like the other person. He will let the professor talk, Professor Jane, and that's a good thing because we want to like see what Professor Jane think when he's not like teaching his students.
We spoke.
Like we can watch uh his his videos, but it will be useless. Like it can be useful, but it will be not useful uh, as far as we wanted. Like for the war, like if you want to learn something else, we can watch it. Then we can watch it.
You were right. You predicted all of this. And since then, you've become quite the social media phenomenon. I'm seeing you.
Because of him. Yeah, I start like I watch his live stream and he start watching his lectures. After that, he pop up. Still, he was getting views. Like not like now. He's huge celebrity in this time. Everybody is trying to like have a talk with him.
Everywhere, all over TikTok. People are sending me all over Twitter. People love your lectures. I admit I've been watching almost all your lectures, but taking a lot more notes. I'm studying and participating in your class. So you kind of maybe you Trump maybe you predicted the timing of this second stream.
Yeah. I mean, things are accelerating. I did think that these things would happen, but the pacing is striking. I mean, how fast things are moving, because already there are rumors of a draft, right? There's reporting that Trump is in favor of ground troops, and now there's talk of a draft, which would be a disaster for the country.
So let's just start with your predictions, right? Your YouTube channel is called Predictive History. You got a lot of this right. I'm not sure. So how much time do you have today?
Well, I mean, we usually do 2 hours, so I was planning on 2 hours, but we can cut it short if you want.
No. As much as possible. This is okay. So when do you think that there is going to be a U.S./Israel ground invasion of Iran?
Right. So this is actually very hard to figure out because usually the strategy is to use proxies, right? So originally the strategy was to bribe the Kurds to go invade from Iraq. Another strategy was to deploy Sunni ISIS insurgents, which are heavily infiltrated by the CIA and the Mossad. And this was the strategy used very effectively in Syria. And then you would support these proxies with special forces and military intelligence targeting and airstrikes. The intention is to draw out the Iranian military as much as possible, right? Because the ground war favors the Americans and Israelis. There are certain issues with this, of course. The first issue is that the Kurds don't trust the Americans or the Israelis because they've been screwed so many times by them. So the most famous example is the 1991 Persian Gulf War, when George H.W. Bush encouraged the Kurds to rise up against Saddam Hussein. And they did. And then when it came time for the Americans to support the Kurds with air power, they didn't do so because they thought that a Kurdish state in part of Iraq would destabilize the region and would piss off the Turks, who are NATO allies. So then Saddam Hussein launched a brutal crackdown and killed hundreds of thousands of Kurds. I mean, it's a very brutal crackdown. And this is actually a very common theme in the Middle East. So the idea that the Kurds are going to go become cannon fodder for this Israel-American military operation didn't work out. And I think that, a couple of days ago, Trump announced that, no, they changed their mind. They're not going to use the Kurds. Another possibility is that Azerbaijan comes into the war, or maybe the Balakis in southeast Iran come into the war as well. But it doesn't seem as though anyone's interested because they appreciate that, first of all, you can't really trust the Israelis and the Americans. Second of all, it's a losing proposition because there's no there's no grand strategy to actually win this war. So that's a major problem. Also, we need to understand that a lot of Mossad capability within Iran has been depleted. So remember, during the 12-Day War, the Israelis, for the first few days, was devastating the Iranian government. A lot of scientists, a lot of generals, like a lot of government officials were being killed, targeted. But the problem with that is that you are revealing to the Iranians your networks in the country. And so after the war, they were able to figure out, where the vulnerabilities were, where the leakages were, catch the spies, and eliminate this human intelligence network embedded in Tehran. And then you had the January protests, where Mossad agents and Mossad affiliated cells were spearheading these protests. They were shooting police officers. They're actually beheading police officers, and this led to a violent confrontation. And that made great headlines, and that made Trump very angry. He said that if these protests continue and the slaughter continues, then he would deploy his Air Force. But what it did was it destroyed these local networks that Mossad had spent years and years to build up in order to precipitate a color revolution. So in other words, another way of saying this is that after a year, the Israeli-American intelligence networks in Iran have been destroyed. And so it's very hard to launch a color revolution. And these conflicts have made the regime, the government in Iran, much more resolved, much more resilient, much more determined against the Americans and Israelis. So the idea of using proxies or using a color revolution playbook won't work in this scenario. So your only option is a ground invasion. And so now there's talk of the Americans seizing Karg Island off the Persian Gulf, which is where the Iranians refine the oil and export it overseas, primarily to China. And it sounds good because once you do that, then you basically destroy the economy of Iran. Iran is very much dependent on its oil exports. But the problem if you do that is that you're now within artillery range of the Iranians. So they don't even have to launch drones or launch suicide submarines against you. They can just strike you with artillery embedded in the mountains. So from a military perspective, that would be suicidal. I mean, it would give the short-term adrenaline boost of yeah, we knocked out their economic capacity. But in the long term, it would be suicidal for the American military to do so. From a military perspective, there's no good pretext, no good strategy for a ground invasion. The problem is that given the way the war is going,
Let's see, he's not talking. That's one thing is great. The other interview was wild.
given the sunk cost fallacy, given the fact that the GCC nations are under a lot of economic pressure, Trump may be pressured by his allies, and especially by Israel, to do something. And what the GCC nations need Trump to do is stabilize the Strait of Hormuz, to open the Strait of Hormuz. And that basically means a ground invasion where you have 100,000 American soldiers trying to occupy the Strait of Hormuz so that ships can pass through. Right now, there are two major issues. The first major issue is insurance. These commercial insurance companies refuse to insure any ships that pass through the Strait of Hormuz. So even if the Iranians don't actually fire anything or mine the Strait of Hormuz, these ships can actually pass through it. And the other issue is protection. So Trump has discussed the possibility of deploying the American Navy to chaperone these ships through the Strait of Hormuz. And that would be suicidal as well. So the Americans have found themselves in a situation where there are no good options. It's only a question of what is your worst option and how much are you willing to further invest in a bad investment? It's literally a drunk gambler in a casino. It's really a question of how much money he's going to lose before he actually gets kicked out of the casino.
He calling it Donald Trump a drunk gambler.
So I saw the report from the Kurds. I'm not sure if this is true, that they rejected the invitation to fight against the Iranians, which you detailed in your lecture that this was going to be the strategy. They were going to try to arm the different ethnic groups because Iran is very ethnically diverse. There's only about 50% of the country are strictly Persian, but you have the Kurds in the northwest, you have the Southeast region, you have, you know, it is a very diverse country. So this has failed. And now the only way to really reclaim the Strait of Hormuz is with the ground invasion. You wrote in your Substack that in order to complete actual regime change, that you would need 500,000 soldiers, but you estimate to be successful, they would need 2 million.
Yeah, so experts are saying that Trump may deploy 500,000 troops, which is the bare minimum. And what I'm saying is that just to be, I mean, like militarily, you would need at least 2 million. Because remember, it's not just combat troops, it's also support as well. So you have to think about the logistics network that you need to protect. And that's the issue that they faced in the Iraq War in 2003. So, you know, on the news, you saw these Americans doing thunder runs in Baghdad. And it was good optics. But what was not reported was that the American military was moving so fast throughout Iraq that their logistics network got left behind. So their transport was left behind. And it was easy prey for the Fahedin, which is the armed militia of the Iraqis. So even though the main military suffered greatly under the American attack, it was actually the armed militia, okay? And these are just volunteers. They were doing tremendous damage to the American military logistics network. And so the Americans are good at shock and awe. They're good at air wars, a quick in and out. They're bad at fighting a long-term ground war. In fact, I mean, the Americans have not fought a long-term ground war since Vietnam, and that was just a dumpster fire.
And there's a lot of analogies Vietnam War seems like it's a repeat of this disaster. It's extremely unpopular with the youth. Vietnam War in Iran, you can see most people, besides the Western Iranian diaspora, which I'm so confused about that they're supporting of this, that they think that this is going to free Iran. But the similarities which you outlined, the fact that Vietnam won, they didn't lose the war because they have familiar terrain with the jungles. Iran is surrounded by a mountainous region, so if they do put a ground invasion into Iran, they can hide in the mountains and just play hide and seek until this is a failure. I'm also seeing the report, so I want to get more into the strategy and asymmetrical warfare. But let's start with the pretext of this war. They keep saying that there were 30,000 protesters, which you have correctly pointed out was infiltrated by CIA and Mossad, confirmed by Mike Pompeo, former CIA director under Trump's first administration. Is this 30,000 number correct? Because we haven't seen any footage of these bodies.
Well, the Iranians say 3,000. And so 30,000 is, I think, an exaggeration. I mean, the reality is that 30,000 is a very hard number to hide. So satellite imagery can give us mass graves. We would hear a lot about this from social media within Iran. I think 30,000 casualties is a very high number. I think it's more like 3,000. I mean, like, these are people, right? So their names, their families.
Yeah, it was like 30,000 protected died in the Iran. I think it would be like chaos. Like, you can see on internet, you can find it everywhere. Like 30,000 people died. The Iran government killed the 30,000 people. It was not there like that. I think also the 30,000, it was the like targeted person. Like, I have to kill this person, because the Mossad Mossad is inside the Iran. We all know it, because their journalists are dying in the hotels by the bombs, not a missile or anything else. I think if someone is like inside the Iran, he can plant the bomb, and then this thing can happen.
There's documentation.
So this is a straight up lie. This is how to get Americans galvanized. What about the potential of a false flag attack? So right now, what's extremely unpopular is when this war started on February 28th, we found out that a school was hit and around 170 children were assassinated by this Tomahawk missile. And they even put another strike right afterwards, and they killed the medics, which is a war crime. So this is really unpopular, and Hegseth and Trump have denied this. They're saying that they're going to investigate it. And in this White House audio on the Air Force One, Trump is saying that it was Iran that did the strike, even though the Tomahawk missiles are only from American military. It doesn't come from Israel. It doesn't come from Iran. Because this is unpopular and people are now seeing how evil this is, Maybe it's a response to the Baal effigy being lit on fire. You know, it's the Semitic god, the false god of human sacrifice. That could be a response. You know, you're going to burn our god, then we're going to offer up a sacrifice. Anyway, that gets a little bit, you know, about eschatology. Is the potential of a false flag style 9/11 attack on the table?
Yeah, so we're already seeing hints of this. All right. So in the first day, Saudi Aramco, the major oil company of Saudi Arabia, said it was shutting down production because a drone had struck their facilities. And at first, everyone assumed it was Iranians who did this because the Iranians are engaging in economic warfare against the GCC. But then later reporting revealed that it was actually a drone from Lebanon. So it's not coming in from the east, it was coming in from the west. And so people suspect that it was an Israeli false flag to drag the Saudis into this war. Also, if a drone hits your oil facilities, that's an act of war, right? So why didn't the Saudis immediately declare war against Iran? We assume that the main reason is they didn't have concrete evidence that it was actually the Iranians who did that. Okay, so that's point one. Point two is that Tucker Carlson on his show said that he received information from the Qataris that they had arrested 2 Mossad agents who were trying to infiltrate and sabotage energy facilities in Qatar. And later on, Qatar actually came out and denied this. But I mean, Tucker Carlson has a lot of contacts. And if he's going to say this on TV, then I think there's some credibility in his reporting. Plus, it's also the Mossad MO, right, to do this. Then there was this drone from Iran that attacked the Azerbaijan, and the Azerbaijan president, you know, huffed and puffed, and he said that he was going to send in ground forces. And then it was later revealed that, you know, it was probably another Mossad false flag. So the reality is that this is just how the Israelis do things. They don't like to fight wars themselves. They like to drag their allies into the war, right? And it's in the best interest, actually, of the Israelis to create a regional conflagration, because ultimately their purpose is the Greater Israel Project. And you know, Naftali Bennett, who was the former Prime Minister of Israel, and who was expected to actually replace Netanyahu after Netanyahu leaves the world stage. He said his basically words were, Turkey is the new Iran. So what he's saying is that after we're done with Iran, we're going to go after Turkey, right? So the Greater Israel Project requires Israel to go after Saudi Arabia, occupy parts of Saudi Arabia, occupy parts of Turkey, and to occupy parts of Egypt. So why not destroy Saudi Arabia in this war to make life easier for yourself later on? Why not drag Turkey into this war to make it easier for yourself, right? So
because they also hit a one missile and it went toward the Turkey. And Iran said we did not do it. And like if Iran have done it, the attack, he told everyone we have done it. Like they are smashing at Dubai and they are saying it, we are doing it. We are doing it. Like they are not hiding it. Like when they are doing it, they are saying, "Oh, we done it. It was we. It was we who did it."
I mean, the game plan of the Israelis is very, very clear, and false flags are definitely their MO. It's only a question of like how serious will this false flag be. The most serious false flag that I think is coming up, which will shock the world, is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So as you may know, they closed down the Al-Aqsa Mosque these past few days. And for the past 2 years, they've been doing archaeological surveys, digging basically underneath the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So the great fear is that the Israelis are planning a 9/11 attack where, you know, an Iranian missile streaks through Jerusalem, and then the Al-Aqsa Mosque is destroyed in the controlled demolition. And then the Israelis blame Iran for the destruction. In fact, if you go on YouTube, there's a very famous video where a preacher talks about this. You know, this rabbi, he talks about this, where, you know, like, wouldn't it be wonderful if during a war, an Iranian missile comes to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque, then we can build a third temple, and then the Arabs and the Persians would start to kill each other, and like let those animals and cowards kill each other. What a wonderful thing, right? So I think that's a great fear. But look, there's also talk of maybe an aircraft carrier getting sunk, right? The Abraham Lincoln is just in a sitting duck right now in the Persian Gulf. And if that were to happen, it would be a mass casualty event, and that would galvanize the American public. The American politicians have been talking about false flags in America and Europe for the longest time. We're like, oh my God, there are these Iranian sleeper cells in America and Europe, and we should be afraid. Okay, so I mean, they're just preparing the ground for a certain false flag. What it will be, we don't know, but we can expect a false flag at some point.
So the GCC has been hit quite a bit. Dubai's been hit. Kuwait.
Well, also Americans don't want this war. Americans also don't want this war. Like they are trying to clear their mentality. Okay, this thing has happened. We have to fight. Then everyone will be like, oh yes, we have to do it. Go government, go. We are with you. Like without the population, you can't do these things. Like if you need an army, you need like normal civilians who can go and fight for the country. Like this kind of situation they are going to create. Like everyone want to fight this war. But right now, I don't think so that Americans are ready to fight. Like I'm talking about the population. It's no. They are saying it's not our war. We don't need this thing. But government, they are not in their mentality. Like they are not stable, guys. They are unstable.
Kuwait, Bahrain. How much of this is from Iran? How much of that is false flag? And what can we expect as the future of the GCC? Because they control so much of the American empire. They benefit the global economy. They trade a lot of the oil comes and they trade with the petrodollar. Does this have the potential to collapse the US dollar? And how much of this can be blamed on Iran and how much it can be blamed on Israel?
Okay, so to answer this question, a very easy principle is past behavior is the best indicator of future behavior, right? So there's really just have a reputation, a history of false flags. That is their MO. They have a history of accelerating events, of escalating events, of creating chaos and destruction throughout the Middle East. That's just their history. The Iranians are different. The Iranians come from a Zoroastrian tradition. And in the Zoroastrian tradition, what's very important is to be on the right side of history, to fight for truth, to fight for justice. That's why the Iranians did not initiate this war, even though a lot of strategists were telling them, no, you need to take the initiative. So we need to remember that from a Zoroastrian perspective, what matters is not to win this war. What matters is to die for the truth. Okay, and this is really important to understand the Iranian strategy here, where it's almost passive, right? So the Iranians could at any point just destroy the desalination plants of the GCC, and then they're done. Okay, like they are just destroyed. The Iranians don't want to do that because they do not want to be on the wrong side of history. But then the Americans struck a desalination plant within Iran, and now they have to respond by striking a desalination plant in Bahrain, right? So the Iranians are sort of passive, but they're controlled and they're measured, and they're trying to make sure they're on the right side of history. So I think that will be the strategy moving forward, where they don't want to be seen as the aggressor in this war. They just want to be seen as defending themselves, defending their sovereignty. Okay, that's point one. Point two is the Iranians, the Persians are smart people. They like to think ahead. Destroying the Middle East does them no good. What they want to do is knock out American bases in the GCC so that America no longer threaten Iranian sovereignty. But ultimately, when the American bases go, the GCC then becomes client states of Iran. And that will enable Iran to not only rebuild their economy and rebuild their society, but then to project power throughout the Muslim world, right? That is the end goal of the Iranians. It makes no sense for the Iranians to destroy all the oil facilities of the GCC, the desalination plants, and make the Middle East uninhabitable. Okay, it makes sense for them to decapitate these regimes. Right, so in Bahrain, there's a revolution, and so they want the people of the GCC to rise up and overthrow these corrupt monarchies, and then become partners and allies of the Iranians, and then build a more prosperous Middle East. That is their game plan here. Okay, they may not achieve it, but that's what they want to achieve. They want to galvanize the Islamic population. They want Muslims on their side. So, 2 billion Muslims are watching this war and they're rooting for Iran. So Iran does not want to be seen as the bad guy here. Okay, so yeah, I mean, like if something happens, and you're like, wait a minute here.
Okay, guys, we will be continuing this thing. Okay, I don't want Iran to have a nuke, bro. If Iran wanted a nuke, Iran will had a nuke, because there was a time period that Pakistan, who has a nuke, he like said them, we can share your nuke. They said no. They said no. I think it's a lie that Iran has a nuke. It's like saying it's saying Israel don't have a nuke. It's the same thing. I think Iran don't wanted the nuke, and I think nuke is in this time period nuke is useless. I don't think so. There are so many bombs in this time period. The most of the things like I say the drones are vile. They like go and smash themselves and they finish. Like they are and cheap. They are so cheap. Like if you are want to control, you want to control a war, it's like you need to have a drones. The drones are like next level. It can smash everything. Okay, guys, we are now going. If you did not have subscribed it, you do it, and we will be back tomorrow, and we will watch this interview. I think this interview is good. The previous interview was like weird. The person who was like the interviewing the Professor Jane, he was like keep talking. You know it. If anyone was watching this live stream, they know that this interview is good than previous one. Okay, see you soon. I will start the live stream in 20 minutes, but it will be all about the game. No, we are not going to talk about this ball. It will be like we are playing the game and making our mind not go insane. Like in these things, we can go insane. Everyone. Okay. Guys, see you soon.